Today in the Boot Guy, we are looking at the Carolina 5586 metatarsal boot. Now, if you're like me, you will admit to the fact that you think metatarsals are some badass looking boots. They always look great. Heavy chunk of metal across the top. You know, you've got a safety toe. Usually you've got a real super heavy duty sole. So they are just tough looking badass boots. But what we don't do is, a lot of us as guys, we don't think about them as an everyday work boot, because when we pick a pair up, yeah, they're heavy. Got all this going on, heavy duty leathers, heavy duty soles, you've got comp toes, you've got a plate. That adds to a lot of weight on a boot. So what Carolina did with the 5586 is they tried to lighten up the product. They tried to make it heavy duty, durable, but they started to use some lighter weight materials where the weight was constantly always drawing the boot down. So what did they do? Composite toe, a lighter weight metatarsal guard, and complete glue construction. All right, so let's start with the sole on this boot. Heavy duty rubber, and you need to have heavy duty rubber on the top layer of any metatarsal boot, because you got to think you're coming in contact with electricity, so you need rubber. You need something that's not a conductive material. You're going to come in contact with hot metal, chips, grinding, slag, whatever. You need a hard, heavy surface so that stuff doesn't either sink in or conduct. So Carolina, with the sole on the 5586, they did a great job of creating this multiple compound. So rubber on the outside, a nice soft urethane in the parts that mattered, forefoot, heel, and around the shank section, they used a nice composite shank that has a lot of support. So if you do have to stand on a piece of metal using your foot as a clamp, as you're cutting, as you're grinding, whatever you're doing, you've got a shank in there to give that piece of material some support. Like I mentioned, the boot is EH, so you guys that are high voltage electrical workers, this boot will be ideal for you because of that fact. Now you're thinking, what the hell? Why would I ever need to have a metatarsal? Well, think about this. Think about if you have to change out breakers. Think about if you have to lift those things up with a breaker lift and you didn't put it on the breaker lift and somebody's, you know, a little klutzy. Having a metatarsal, having that comp toe, having a boot like this in that environment just makes a lot of sense. Plus, with it being EH, electrical hazard rated, this boot can withstand applications of 18,000 volts at 60 hertz for 1 minute. Now, that might not sound like a lot, but when you think about the human body can be vaporized in seconds with the right amount of voltage, with the right amount of amperage, with the right amount of electricity running through it, having that little extra bit of safety is a really nice touch. Let's move on to the leather. The banded leather is outstanding. It is soaked with a lot of oil, so it's going to be water repellent. These boots are not waterproof. Even though during my test of this boot, I went out in some really heavy duty rain. I spent a lot of time outside in downpours with these boots. My feet never got wet. But it's not a membrane waterproof boot. The only thing keeping that water from getting in is the amount of oil that is in this boot. And of course, I did brush them, I did treat them while I was testing them. I just didn't let them run raw. I had to take care of it just a little bit because I was coming in contact with some pretty caustic materials. So I had to clean my boots off and I had to re-oil them. Feet never got wet. So let's talk about the metatarsal guard. This is the winged metatarsal guard from Carolina. They've been working on a design like this for a long time now, and you can see it through a couple of their older models. Now, Carolina is actually known for making great metatarsal boots for foundry work, pouring metal, hot environments. This boot, in my opinion, was not designed for those environments. This boot was designed for lighter weight, industrial environments like that, places where you're not pouring hot metal, places where you're not walking through extremely hot environments. This is more of a boot for somebody who needs to wear metatarsals, but where they're not in such an environment where the metatarsal is going to be their first layer of protection against what is going on. So something that I was asked during the test, which I posted a lot of photos of me wearing this boot and me using this boot out in the fields on my Instagram feed. One of the questions I got sent in an email was, what about lacing and the laces that come with the metatarsal boots? The guy that asked the question was asking it because he burns through the laces on his metatarsals a lot, and some pairs of metatarsals, it's extremely hard to get the laces through and lace them up after you do burn them up. So Carolina sends along a very basic, it's a well-made lace, but for a metatarsal, it's basic. It's a nylon polyester mixed lace, and yes, grinding, cutting, doing whatever you're doing, welding, this lace is going to burn up right away. But what Carolina did do by engineering this boot with the wing metatarsal is that they created a little space for you to get your hand down inside there and relace your boot much easier than most metatarsals. The eyelets do fold away so you can push your lace through on either side, and you can add some leather laces to this, oil dipped leather laces or Kevlar laces, whatever you choose. All right, so let's get to the comfort of this thing. What you're gonna find inside is Carolina's latest addition to building a comfortable work boot. They have added a piece of urethane. They're calling it the midsole down to the bottom of the boot. It is glued in. And on top of that, you find a foam. Yes, foam footbed, foam insole, whatever you want to call these. I keep getting people who are sending me emails correcting me on my terminology for this. I call it an insole. People call it a sock liner. Other guys call it something else, but I'm going to keep calling them insoles. On top of that beautiful midsole, that super soft material, you'll find this insole. Now it's just foam. This foam is very resilient. It's not a urethane, it is a foam. So what's gonna happen is by the end of the day when you're walking around this thing, it's gonna be sweaty, your foot's gonna be sweaty. This foam does not hold on to moisture. You pull this thing out, you let a little air pass over this and pass inside your boot. When you wake up in the morning, 4:30, 5 o'clock, to put your boots on, they're gonna be dry. Like I said in the beginning, it is a fully cement constructed boot. It's glued together. Now, for a lot of guys, that's not a good thing, but for a lot of other guys, in certain environments where there's a lot of chemicals, a lot of cutting chemicals, a lot of electrical chemicals coming into play with boots, having cement construction is much better than having something that's sewn together. So there is a positive side to the cement construction on this boot for the class of type of boot that it is. All right, size, fit, and comfort. Personally, when I first put them on, the first 48 hours wearing them back to back, one day after the other, I had some sore feet. The insoles, everything that's inside here is really thick, really cushiony, really comfortable. But since my foot was not accustomed to wearing a metatarsal, it's been years since I wore a metatarsal. The last pair that I owned and actually wore on a regular basis was also a Carolina. It's an older number that they make, the 516. It's just a full leather metatarsal welted boot, beautiful, made in America. But comparing that old style to this new thing, this is wonderful. This really is leaps and bounds above the older metatarsal styles for comfort, for quality, for just the way it fits. Now, like I said, my feet were uncomfortable after 48 hours. I did give myself 2 or 3 days of not wearing it, and then I revisited it because I actually needed the boot for what it was intended for. And I gotta say, that third day of wearing, after 2 hard days of wearing it, it was really comfortable. Everything broke in. It became extremely flexible, extremely pliable, and the cushions settled in really nice. So as I was walking, as I was carrying, and as I was moving things around, the boot was outstanding. Now, if you're wondering about sizing these up because you're picking them up online, just go with your size. If you've worn Carolinas in the past, you're not going to have any problem because you're going to know your size for Carolina. Their sizing scale between styles of boots and different boots is always consistent. Now, if you're coming from wearing one of the other brands of metatarsals, whether it's one that comes off a shoe truck or something you pick up at your local supply house, I will say that you probably want to buy them a half size bigger if it is possible. If it's not, go with your size and just be ready to remove the first insole that's in there for a day or two, just so you're not crammed up against the comp toe. I'm not saying it's shallow. I'm just saying that you got to give yourself a couple of days and don't force the boot to break in. Break these boots in slowly and you will be happy. So that's the Carolina 5586 winged metatarsal super comfortable comp toe boot. Hey, if you're currently wearing the 5586 or if you're wearing any of the new Carolinas with the super soft insoles and the super soft midsole, please comment below. Let guys know what you think about it. Also, if you're wearing anything that's safety toe in this same realm of boots, also comment below and let guys know what you think about the clearance in the comp toe section. Hey, if you're interested in seeing a couple photos of this boot, swing by thebootguy.com. I've got some dirty photos of the boot. I got some cleaned up photos of the boot. Also, swing by my Instagram and check out the couple of weeks that I wore it around so you can actually see the progress on how the boot performed as I wore it to and from work. Hey, please don't forget to hit my subscribe button below. It really helps out. Also, remember, you can support me on Patreon. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter. And if you want to swing by my Facebook page and check things out, feel free. Hey, if you're about to pick up your first pair of metatarsals and you just got a few questions about buying metatarsals, how they should fit, how much room you should have, how the heel should fit, which is a real question that I get a lot from guys when purchasing metatarsals, because metatarsals are heavy, so as you walk around and as you step, your foot slides around a little bit on the initial fitting and the first few days in. If you got questions about that, feel free to shoot me over an email. All right, until the next time, I'm the Boot Guy. Thanks a lot for watching.